Dr. Kang Ji-won wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the weather readings on his tablet. The plasma storm was getting worse. Purple lightning crackled across the dark sky of Valdris 7, and the wind howled like angry spirits around his small research station. He had been alone on this planet for 8 months now, studying alien plant life for the Earth Science Council. Most days were quiet, just him and his experiments. But tonight felt different. The storm was fiercer than any he had seen before. Ji-won was about to head inside when something caught his eye near the edge of his camp. At first he thought it was just debris blown by the wind. But as another flash of lightning lit up the area, he saw something that made his heart stop. It was a body. But not human. The creature was huge, at least 7 feet tall, lying motionless on the rocky ground. Silver scales covered its skin, shimmering even in the dim light. What shocked Ji-won most were the 4 arms, 2 on each side of its torso. Blood, dark and thick, pooled around the body. Ji-won's first instinct was to run. His training had been clear: no contact with alien life forms, report any sightings immediately and wait for the military team. But as he stared at the wounded creature, he noticed something that changed everything. The chest was moving up and down, slowly but steadily. The alien was still alive. Another bolt of lightning struck nearby, and in that brief moment of light, Ji-won saw the creature's face. It was clearly female, with sharp features that looked both beautiful and dangerous. Her eyes were closed, but he could see intelligence in her face, even unconscious. The storm was getting stronger. If he left her here, she would die within the hour. The temperature was dropping fast, and the acid rain that came with these plasma storms would burn through anything left outside. Ji-won looked back at his warm, safe station, then at the dying alien. His radio sat on his desk inside, ready to call for help. But help would take 3 days to arrive if they came at all. The military might just order him to let her die. He made his choice. Fighting against the wind, Ji-won ran to his storage shed. He grabbed emergency tarps, medical supplies, and a portable heater. The acid rain was starting to fall, tiny drops that hissed when they hit the ground. Working quickly, he dragged the unconscious alien toward a rocky overhang that offered some protection. She was incredibly heavy, her muscle mass far greater than any human. Even unconscious, he could feel the power in her body. The alien's blood was strange. It seemed to eat through his gloves when he touched it. He had to work carefully, using tools instead of his hands. The wounds were deep, made by claws or some kind of blade. Whatever had attacked her was big and vicious. As Ji-won set up the emergency shelter, wrapping the tarps around metal poles to create a small protected space, he wondered what he was doing. This creature could kill him easily once she woke up. Those 4 arms looked built for fighting, and her clawed hands could probably tear him apart, but something in her face told him she wasn't a monster. Call it instinct, or maybe just human, compassion. But Ji-won felt this was the right thing to do. The shelter was crude but functional. He managed to get the alien inside just as the worst of the acid rain began to fall. The heater warmed the small space, and he used his basic medical kit to clean her wounds as best he could. As he worked, the alien's eyes suddenly opened. They were golden, like liquid fire, and completely aware. She looked directly at him, studying his face with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. Ji-won froze, waiting for her to attack. Instead, she simply watched him, those golden eyes following his every movement as he continued treating her injuries. The next morning, Ji-won woke up with a sore back from sleeping on the hard ground next to his makeshift shelter. The plasma storm had passed, leaving the air clean and crisp. But his problems were just beginning. The alien Huntress was awake, sitting upright despite her injuries. Those golden eyes tracked his every movement as he crawled out of his sleeping bag. She didn't move to attack, but Ji-won could see the coiled strength in her forearms. She was like a big cat, calm but ready to strike at any moment. "Good morning," Ji-won said softly, knowing she probably couldn't understand him. "How are you feeling?" She tilted her head slightly, studying his face. Her expression was curious rather than hostile, which gave him hope. Ji-won had brought his entire first aid kit outside, but most of it was useless now. Her acidic blood had eaten through 3 pairs of surgical gloves, 2 metal instruments, and even melted holes in his plastic medicine containers. He needed to find other ways to help her. Going back to his research station, he gathered everything he could think of. Glass containers that might resist the acid, ceramic tools from his kitchen, even his grandmother's old wooden chopsticks that he kept for good luck. If metal and plastic wouldn't work, maybe older materials would. The Huntress watched with interest. As he returned with his strange collection of supplies, when he held up a glass jar and pointed to her wounds, she seemed to understand. She extended one of her forearms toward him, palm up. Her skin was incredibly tough, like flexible armor. The scales weren't just for show, they were natural protection. But underneath, where she was wounded, Ji-won could see softer tissue that looked almost human-like. Working carefully with wooden tools, he cleaned the dried blood from her injuries. The fresh blood that seeped out was still acidic, but the wooden implements held up better than anything else he had tried. She winced occasionally, but never pulled away or threatened him. "You're very patient," Ji-won said as he worked. Most people would be screaming by now. The Huntress made a soft sound, not quite human, but definitely communicative. It sounded almost like a question. "Oh, you want to know what I'm saying?" Ji-won smiled. "I'm just talking to keep myself calm. This is pretty scary, you know. You could probably tear me in half without breaking a sweat." She made another sound, and this time it almost sounded like laughter. Her golden eyes seemed amused rather than offended. As the hours passed, Ji-won began to notice things about his patient. She was incredibly alert, constantly scanning their surroundings even while injured. Her hearing was much better than his. She would turn her head towards sounds he couldn't even detect, and she was studying him just as carefully as he was studying her. When he brought her water in a ceramic bowl, she sniffed it carefully before drinking. Smart. She didn't know if human water was safe for her species. When he offered her some of his dried food, she examined it closely, then tried just a tiny piece. After waiting a few minutes to make sure it didn't make her sick, she ate a little more. "You're a hunter, aren't you?" Ji-won said, watching how she moved. Even injured, every motion was controlled and purposeful. "That's why you're so careful. You have to be to survive." The Huntress looked directly at him when he said the word hunter. She pointed to herself and made a complex series of sounds. It took Ji-won a moment to realize she was telling him her name. "Nira?" he repeated, trying to copy the sounds. She nodded and pointed to him with a questioning look. "Ji-won," he said, pointing to himself. "My name is Ji-won." She tried to repeat it, her alien vocal cords making it sound different but recognizable. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. It wasn't quite a human smile, but the meaning was clear. For the first time since finding her, Ji-won began to relax. Maybe this wouldn't end with him being torn apart after all. Over the next week, Nira's wounds began to heal at an incredible rate. What would have taken a human months to recover from seemed to be fixing itself in days. But she didn't rush to leave. Instead, she watched everything Ji-won did with the curiosity of a scientist. Every morning, Ji-won would start his day by checking his plant samples. He had dozens of alien specimens growing in small containers, each one carefully labeled and monitored. Nira would sit nearby, her golden eyes following his movements as he measured growth, took photos and made notes on his tablet. At first, Ji-won felt nervous having such a powerful predator watching his every move. But gradually, he realized she wasn't studying him like prey. She was genuinely interested in his work. When he showed her how he used a microscope to examine plant cells, she leaned in close, fascinated by the tiny images on the screen. "You understand science, don't you?" Ji-won said one afternoon as they sat together. "Your people aren't just hunters, you're intelligent." Nira picked up a stick and began drawing in the dirt. Her first drawing was simple, a circle with smaller circles around it. She pointed up at the sky, then back at her drawing. Planets orbiting a star. Ji-won's heart raced. This wasn't just intelligence, this was astronomical knowledge. She drew more pictures, tall, graceful ships flying between the planets, groups of her people moving from world to world. Then she drew something that made Ji-won's blood run cold, a massive creature with too many teeth and claws, much larger than herself. "That's what hurt you," Ji-won said, pointing at the monster in her drawing. Nira nodded grimly. She drew more pictures showing herself and other hunters tracking the beast. But in her drawings, many of the hunters didn't survive. She had barely escaped with her life. As the days passed, their communication improved. Nira learned some basic English words, while Jiwon picked up a few sounds from her language. She taught him that her people were called the Skyborn clans, nomads who traveled from planet to planet, never staying in one place for long. What surprised Jiwon most wasn't her intelligence, but her character. Despite being a trained killer, Nira was incredibly gentle with him. When he accidentally cut himself on a sharp piece of metal, she immediately brought him clean water and bandages. When food ran low, she insisted he eat first, even though she was much larger and needed more calories. "How you don't act like any predator I've studied," Jiwon told her one evening as they shared dinner. "You're more like a guardian." Nira seemed to understand the compliment. She made a soft purring sound that he had learned meant she was pleased. Her last night at the camp, Nira did something that changed everything. She approached Jiwon with a serious expression, carrying a small, sharp stone. She pointed to his chest, then to herself, then made cutting motions. Jiwon's first instinct was to back away. But something in her eyes told him this was important. This wasn't an attack, it was a ceremony. "You want to mark me?" he asked. Nira nodded solemnly. She drew in the dirt again, showing figures with matching scars standing together. Family. Brotherhood, Jiwon understood. This was how her people claimed someone as their own. By accepting these scars, he would become part of her clan in some way. It was probably the most dangerous decision of his life, but Jiwon pulled off his shirt and nodded. Nira's touch was surprisingly gentle as she made 3 parallel cuts across his chest. The wounds were shallow but precise, just deep enough to leave permanent scars. As his blood flowed, she pressed her clawed hand over the cuts, mixing their blood together. She spoke words in her own language, sounds that seemed to carry weight and meaning, far beyond what Jiwon could understand. When she finished, she looked at him with something that might have been pride. "Clan brother," she said in careful English. The next morning she was gone, but the scars on Jiwon's chest remained, 3 parallel lines that would mark him forever as someone special to the Skyborn clans. He had no idea how much that would matter in the months to come. Jiwon was analyzing soil samples when the ground began to shake. At first he thought it was another earthquake. Valdris 7 had plenty of seismic activity, but this tremor felt different. It came in a rhythm, like massive footsteps. He looked up from his microscope, just as a familiar figure emerged from the forest. Nira moved with urgent purpose, her forearms swinging as she covered ground at incredible speed. But something was wrong. Her usual calm confidence was replaced by obvious stress. "Nira!" Jiwon called out, genuinely happy to see his friend again. The scars on his chest had healed into 3 clean lines, a constant reminder of their bond. But Nira didn't return his smile. She rushed straight to him, grabbing his shoulders with 2 of her hands. Her golden eyes were wide with fear, an expression he had never seen on her face before. "Jiwon," she said in her careful English, "big danger, very big danger." She immediately began drawing in the dirt, her movements quick and desperate. This time her pictures were much more detailed than before. She drew the human mining colony on the far side of the continent, with its massive machines digging deep into the planet's crust. "The miners?" Jiwon asked. "What about them?" Nira shook her head and drew something rising from deep underground. The creature she sketched was enormous, easily 10 times larger than herself. It had too many legs, too many teeth, and what looked like armored plating covering its entire body. "Planet killer," she said, struggling with the English words. "Sleeps deep, very deep, for many..." She held up her fingers, trying to show a large number. "Years? Decades?" Jiwon guessed. "Much more. Hundreds. Thousands." She drew more pictures showing the creature sleeping while civilizations rose and fell above it. Humans wake it. Big machines, loud noise, deep digging. Very angry now. Jiwon felt a chill run down his spine. The mining operation was massive, using explosive charges and heavy drilling equipment to extract rare minerals from deep underground. If they had accidentally awakened some kind of ancient predator— "Where is it now?" he asked. Neera drew a rough map in the dirt, showing the mining site and the human colonies. Then she drew a line showing the creature's path. It was heading straight for the main settlement, where over 50,000 people lived and worked. "My clan tries to stop," Neera continued, her voice heavy with grief. She drew more pictures showing hunters attacking the beast. Many of the figures in her drawings were crossed out. "Too strong, too big. We lose many good hunters." "How long do we have?" Ji-won asked. Neera held up her fingers. 10 days, maybe less." Ji-won's mind raced. The human colonies had some defensive weapons, but nothing designed to handle a creature of this size. And if Neera's clan, experienced hunters with advanced weapons, couldn't stop it, what chance did the colonists have? "Why did you come to me?" he asked. "I'm just a scientist. I study plants, not monsters." Neera pointed to his research equipment. The seismic monitors, atmospheric sensors and computer systems he used to track weather patterns and geological activity. "I see things we cannot see," she said. "You understand how planet moves, how ground shakes, how air changes. Planet Killer is part of Planet Now. Maybe your knowledge can help." She pulled out a small device from a pouch on her belt. It looked like a combination of alien technology and salvaged human electronics. When she activated it, it showed a crude map with moving dots. "My clan tracks with eyes, with smell, with sound," she explained. "But creature moves underground sometimes. We lose trail. Your machines can see underground, yes?" Ji-won looked at his equipment with new eyes. His seismic monitors were designed to detect earthquake activity, but they could theoretically track any large movement underground. His atmospheric sensors might be able to detect chemical changes caused by the creature's breathing or body chemistry. "Maybe," he said slowly. "But I'd need to modify everything, create a network of sensors, program new detection algorithms." "Can you do it?" Neera asked urgently. Ji-won thought about the 50,000 people in the colonies. Men, women, children who had no idea a nightmare was heading their way. Then he looked at the scars on his chest, marking him as clan brother to these alien hunters. "I can try," he said, "but I'll need your help. Your knowledge of how this thing behaves combined with my technology. Maybe together we can figure out how to stop it." For the first time since arriving, Neera smiled. But it was a grim smile, the expression of someone preparing for a desperate battle. "Then we worked together." "Clan brother," she said, "time is short." The next 24 hours were the most intense of Ji-won's life. He worked frantically to transform his peaceful research station into a monster-hunting command center, while Neera paced around him like a caged predator, her forearms constantly moving as she shared everything she knew about their enemy. "First thing," Ji-won said, pulling apart his main seismic monitor. "We need to understand how this thing moves." Neera crouched beside him, watching as he rewired the sensitive equipment. "Planet Killer not like normal hunter," she explained. "Sometimes walks on surface, leaves big tracks. Sometimes goes underground, moves through old cave systems. That's why your clan keeps losing it," Ji-won realized. "You're tracking it like a surface predator, but it's actually moving in 3 dimensions." He connected his seismometer to a laptop and began programming new detection algorithms. Instead of looking for earthquake patterns, he needed to identify the specific vibration signature of something massive moving either above or below ground. "Tell me about its hunting behavior," Ji-won said as he worked. "Does it follow scent, sound, heat?" Neera's eyes grew distant as she remembered her encounters with the creature. "It feels life," she said slowly. "Big groups of life, like how you smell food cooking, but for living things." "Biomass detection," Ji-won muttered. "It's attracted to large concentrations of living creatures." That explained why it was heading for the human colonies. 50,000 people in one place would be like a beacon to something that hunted by sensing life energy. Working together, they began setting up a network of modified sensors around Ji-won's research area. Each device was programmed to detect different aspects of the Planet Killer's presence: ground vibrations, atmospheric chemical changes, electromagnetic disturbances, and even temperature variations that might indicate something massive moving nearby. But the real breakthrough came when Neera taught G1 how to think like a predator. "Humans think too much in straight lines," she said, drawing patterns in the dirt. "You see shortest path from here to there, but Hunter thinks about prey behavior. What will prey do? Where will prey feel safe? Then Hunter goes there first." G1 stared at her drawings and suddenly everything clicked. "You're right. We've been trying to predict where it's going, but we should be predicting where the colonists will run when they see it coming." They spent hours analyzing maps of the human settlements, identifying escape routes, shelters, and places where panicked people might gather. Then Neera showed G1 how to think like the planet killer. Where would it go to catch the most prey, with the least effort? "Evacuation routes," G1 said, his voice filled with horror. "It won't attack the main colony first. It'll position itself along the evacuation routes and pick people off as they flee." "Now you think like Hunter," Neera said approvingly. "Very dangerous Hunter." By the second day, their improvised tracking system was showing results. The modified sensors were detecting something massive, moving in a complex pattern underground, sometimes surfacing, sometimes diving deep into cave systems that G1's geological surveys had never even mapped. "Look at this," G1 said, pointing to the data streaming across his computer screen. "It's not moving randomly. There's a pattern here." Neera studied the readouts, her predator instincts interpreting the data in ways G1's scientific training couldn't match. "It scouts," she said finally, "like wolf pack leader. Checks prey, learns habits, finds weaknesses." "It's been watching the colonies," G1 realized, "learning their routines, their defenses, their escape plans." The creature was far more intelligent than either of them had realized. This wasn't just a mindless monster. It was a tactical predator that had been studying its prey for weeks. "How do we fight something that smart?" G1 asked. Neera's expression grew fierce. "We be smarter. Your science shows us where it goes. My hunting knowledge shows us what it thinks. Together, we know it better than it knows itself." They worked through the night, combining human technology with alien wisdom. G1's sensors provided precise location data, while Neera's understanding of predator psychology helped them anticipate the creature's next moves. By dawn, they had something unprecedented, a real-time tracking and prediction system that could stay one step ahead of the planet killer. Now they just had to figure out how to kill it. The first day of the hunt began at dawn. Neera's clan arrived like ghosts from the forest. 12 seasoned hunters, each armed with weapons that seemed to blend alien technology with natural materials. Their leader, an older huntress named Carla, looked at G1 with obvious skepticism. "This human can truly track the planet killer?" Carla asked Neera in their clicking language. G1 understood enough of their words by now to catch the doubt in her voice. He pulled up his tracking display showing the creature's current position 15 kilometers south, moving through an underground river system. "It will surface here in 2 hours," he said, pointing to a spot on the map where the underground river met a canyon. The geological pressure forces everything up at that point. Carla studied the data, then looked at Neera with surprise. "Your clan brother has useful skills." The hunters moved out in coordinated teams while G1 stayed behind with his equipment, maintaining constant communication through the alien-human hybrid radio system they had built. His job was to be their eyes from above, tracking the planet killer's movements and warning them of ambushes. "Target emerging now," G1 radioed when his sensors detected massive movement at exactly the predicted location. "It's bigger than we thought, at least 30 meters long." Through his modified equipment, he tracked the battle in real time. The hunters attacked in waves, using hit-and-run tactics to avoid the creature's devastating claws and acidic breath. But their weapons, designed for normal prey, barely scratched the planet killer's armored hide. "Fall back," G1 shouted into his radio as his sensors showed the creature turning to pursue the retreating hunters. "It's moving faster than your calculations." The first day ended with no real damage to their target, but valuable intelligence gathered. That night, as the wounded hunters rested, G1 and Neera analyzed every piece of data they had collected. "Your weapons can't penetrate its armor from the outside," Ji-won concluded. But look at this thermal imaging. See these heat patterns along its belly? Nira studied the data. Weak spots, breathing vents. It's so large it needs multiple air intake systems. If we could get explosives into those openings, very dangerous, Nira said. Hunter would have to get underneath while it attacks. Day 2 was a nightmare. Following Ji-won's plan, the hunters tried to force the planet killer. They went to a narrow canyon, where one brave warrior could slip underneath. But the creature was learning their tactics, adapting to their strategies with frightening intelligence. "It's hurting you," Ji-won screamed into his radio as his sensors showed the hunters being driven into a dead-end valley. "This is a trap. Get out now!" 3 hunters were badly injured before they managed to escape. That night, as Ji-won helped treat the wounded with his limited medical supplies, the mood in camp was grim. "Maybe we cannot win," Kayla said quietly. "This creature has survived for thousands of years. We are just another failed hunting party." But Ji-won was studying the data from both days, looking for patterns the hunters couldn't see. "Wait," he said suddenly. "Look at its movement patterns. Every time it uses its acid breath, it has to stop for exactly 47 seconds afterward. Recharging its poison glands," Nira realized. "More than that. Look at the seismic data during those pauses. It's not just recharging, it's vulnerable. Its armored plates separate slightly to vent excess heat." Day 3 began with a desperate gambit. Using Ji-won's precise timing data, the hunters would force the planet killer to use its breath weapon, then attack during the vulnerable window that followed. "Acid discharge in 3, 2, 1, now!" Ji-won called out as his sensors detected the chemical signature of the creature's attack. This time the hunters were ready. As the planet killer paused to recharge, they struck at the exposed gaps in its armor with concentrated fire. The creature's roar of pain and rage could be heard. 4 kilometers, again. Make it breathe acid again. For 6 hours they repeated the deadly dance. Force an acid attack. Strike during the recovery period. Retreat before the creature could retaliate. Slowly, methodically, they wore down their ancient enemy. The final blow came when Nira herself, guided by Ji-won's real-time tracking data, managed to plant an explosive charge directly into one of the creature's breathing vents during a vulnerable moment. The planet killer's death throes shook the ground for kilometers around. When the dust settled, the ancient predator was finally still. But victory came at a cost. 4 hunters were seriously wounded, and Carla herself had lost an arm to the creature's claws. As Ji-won worked frantically to save the injured with his adapted medical knowledge, he realized this was only the beginning of something much larger. The hardest part wasn't killing the planet killer, it was what came after. Carla lay bleeding on the rocky ground, her severed arm wrapped in makeshift bandages that were already soaked through with her acidic blood. 3 other hunters were in similar condition, deep claw wounds, acid burns, and internal injuries that Ji-won couldn't even begin to understand. "I don't know if I can help them," Ji-won told Nira honestly, as he knelt beside the wounded clan leader. "Their biology is so different from humans. What if I make things worse?" Nira grabbed his shoulder with one of her 4 hands. "You saved me," she said firmly. "You understand healing. These are my clanmates, my family, please try." Ji-won took a deep breath and got to work. He had learned a lot about alien physiology during Nira's recovery months ago, but this was far more serious. Kayla's wound was pumping out blood that ate through his metal instruments. The other hunters had injuries in places he couldn't even identify as organs. Working with ceramic and wooden tools, just as he had with Nira, Ji-won began adapting his human medical knowledge to alien anatomy. He noticed that their blood vessels were arranged differently, more redundant pathways, which explained how they could survive wounds that would kill a human instantly. "Their pressure points are here and here," he muttered to himself, finding spots where he could slow the bleeding, and their pain responses seemed to work like this. Hour after hour, he worked on each injured hunter. He used techniques from human battlefield medicine, modified for 4-armed anatomy and acidic blood. When his supplies ran low, he improvised with materials from his research station. Sterile. Plant extracts that seemed to help their healing, mineral solutions that neutralized their acid blood enough to work with. The breakthrough came when he realized their cellular regeneration worked much faster than human healing, but only if the wounds were properly aligned and clean. Once he figured out how to support their natural healing process instead of fighting it, the results were dramatic. Kayla was the last one he treated. Her arm couldn't be saved, but Ji-won managed to seal the wound and prevent infection. As consciousness returned to her golden eyes, she looked at him with an expression he had never seen from an alien before, complete trust. "The human healer lives up to his reputation," she said weakly. "My reputation?" Ji-won asked, confused. Nira explained while helping her clan leader sit up. "Word has spread among the clans, the human who bonded with a Huntress, the one who helped kill the planet killer with his strange knowledge." Over the following days, as the wounded hunters recovered, Ji-won learned just how far word had traveled. The Skyborn clans were nomads, but they had communication networks that spanned star systems. Stories traveled from ship to ship, clan to clan, growing with each telling. A young hunter named Zeth told him what the other clans were saying. "They call you the Bridge Walker, the one who stands between human knowledge and hunter wisdom. Some say you have magic," added another hunter, grinning with sharp teeth. "That you can see through rock and predict the future." "It's just science," Ji-won protested. "Sensors and data analysis. Science that saved our lives," Carla said firmly. "Science that killed an ancient evil. Call it what you want. To us it is power used in service of the hunt." As news of their victory spread, something unprecedented began to happen. Other clans started changing their migration routes to pass through this sector of space. They wanted to see the human who had earned a place among the hunters. Ships began arriving, not just single clans but entire clan groups. Hundreds of hunters came to pay their respects to both the victorious warriors and the strange human who had made victory possible. "This has never happened before," Nira told Ji-won as they watched another ship land in the distance. "The clans gather like this only for the most important ceremonies." Ji-won felt overwhelmed. "What do they expect from me? I'm just a scientist who got lucky." "You are clan brother to a Huntress," Carla said, her voice carrying the weight of tradition. "You shared blood with one of us. You fought beside us. You saved our lives with knowledge we did not possess." She paused, looking at him with those intelligent golden eyes. "By our oldest laws, that makes you family. And family takes care of family." Ji-won didn't understand what she meant yet, but as more ships continued to arrive, filling the sky with alien craft, he began to realize his quiet life as a research scientist was about to change forever. The clans had plans for their new Bridgewalker. Big plans. Ji-won was cataloging soil samples when the sky went dark. At first he thought it was another storm rolling in, but when he looked up, his breath caught in his throat. Dozens of alien ships were descending through the clouds, more spacecraft than he had ever seen in one place. The vessels were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Each one was different, crafted by individual clans with their own artistic styles. Some looked like giant birds with metallic wings, others resembled flowing ribbons of silver and gold. They landed in perfect formation around his research station, creating a vast circle that stretched to the horizon. "What's happening?" Ji-won whispered to himself as hundreds of figures began emerging from the ships. These weren't just hunters. Entire families were stepping onto the surface of Valdris 7. Elders with wisdom-worn faces, warriors in ceremonial armor, younglings who had never seen a human before. They all wore elaborate clothing decorated with symbols Ji-won didn't recognize, and they moved with the coordinated precision of a people who had planned this moment for months. Nira appeared at his side, as if from nowhere, but even she looked different. Instead of her usual practical hunting gear, she wore flowing robes that shimmered with embedded crystals. Her 4 arms were decorated with intricate tattoos that told the story of her victories. "Clan brother," she said formally. "The time has come." "Time for what?" Ji-won asked, but his question was answered when the crowd parted to reveal a figure unlike any alien he had ever seen. The elder was ancient beyond measure, her silver scales dulled with age, but her golden eyes still sharp with intelligence. She moved with the aid of a walking staff that looked like it had been carved from the bone of some massive creature. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of countless generations. "I am Elder Rakahai, she said in perfect English that surprised. Jiwon, speaker for the High Council of all Skyborn clans. We have traveled far to meet the one they call Bridgewalker. The crowd fell silent as she approached. Jiwon felt hundreds of alien eyes watching his every movement, but there was no hostility. In their gaze, only curiosity and something that might have been hope. You honor me with your presence, Jiwon said carefully, remembering the formal phrases Nira had taught him. Elder Rakhai smiled, and suddenly she didn't look quite so intimidating. The honor is ours, young human. What you have done has not happened in 10,000 years of clan history, she gestured to the assembled crowd. These are representatives from 47 different clans. They have come from across the galaxy to witness this moment. What moment? Jiwon asked, though part of him was beginning to understand. The Great Welcoming, Elder Rakhai announced, her voice carrying across the vast gathering. For the first time in our recorded history, we offer full membership in the Skyborn clans to one not born among us. The crowd erupted in a sound unlike anything Jiwon had ever heard. Hundreds of voices raised in harmonious clicking and trilling that somehow managed to sound both alien and beautiful. It was clearly a song of celebration, passed down through generations of nomadic people. I don't understand, Jiwon said when the music faded. I helped with one hunt. I treated some wounds. That doesn't make me special. Elder Rakhai stepped closer, studying his face with those ancient eyes. You think like us, but you know things we do not. You fight beside us, but you heal our wounds. You respect our ways, but you bring new wisdom. She paused, letting her words sink in. Most importantly, you chose to help when you could have stayed safe. You risked your life for people who were not your own kind. That is the heart of what it means to be clan. Another elder stepped forward, carrying an ornate chest made from some kind of crystalline material. Inside, Jiwon could see objects that clearly held great significance, weapons, tools, and artifacts that looked both ancient and incredibly valuable. If you accept our invitation, Elder Rakhai continued, you will become the first human member of the Skyborn clans. You will have the protection of 47 clan groups, spanning hundreds of worlds. You will share in our knowledge, our resources, and our adventures among the stars. She smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in her expression. But more than that, you will have a family larger than any human has ever known. Jiwon looked around at the hundreds of faces watching him. Some were curious, others hopeful, but all of them were waiting for his answer. These weren't conquerors or colonizers. They were nomads offering to share their ancient way of life with someone they had come to see as worthy. What would you need from me in return? He asked. Just be yourself, Nira said softly, the Bridgewalker who helps his family survive. Before you give us your answer, Elder Rakhai said with a mysterious smile, there is something you must see. She gestured toward the largest of the landed ships, a magnificent vessel that seemed to combine organic curves with crystalline structures. As they approached, Jiwon could see that it was different from the others. Newer modifications had been added to its hull, and strange viewing ports dotted its surface. We have been working on this for 3 months, Nira explained as they walked. Ever since word spread about what you accomplished here. The ship's entrance opened with a soft hiss, revealing an interior that took Jiwon's breath away. The main corridor was spacious enough for the tall aliens to move comfortably, but everything had been designed with dual purposes in mind. Living, spaces that could also serve as laboratories, meeting areas that doubled as research centers. This is incredible, Jiwon whispered as they walked deeper into the ship. But I don't understand why you've built all this. Elder Rakhai led him to a massive chamber near the ship's heart. When the doors opened, Jiwon stopped dead in his tracks. It was a laboratory that put his entire research station to shame. But it wasn't just equipped with alien technology. His own instruments were there too, modified and enhanced with alien improvements he couldn't even begin to understand. Your seismic equipment, Nira said, pointing to a device that looked like his old monitors but somehow more elegant. Now it can detect life patterns across entire star systems. Your atmospheric sensors, added another clan member. Enhanced to analyze the air of any world we visit. Your computers, Elder Rakhai said, gesturing to a workstation that seemed to blend human interface design with alien processing power. Connected to our navigation systems and star charts, Jiwon moved through the laboratory like a man in a dream. Everything he needed to continue his research was here, but elevated far beyond what he could have achieved alone. Microscopes that could examine samples at the molecular level. Scanners that could analyze an entire planet's ecosystem from orbit. Communication arrays that could transmit data across interstellar distances. "This is your laboratory, Pathseeker," Elder Rakhai said formally. "If you join us." "Pathseeker," Jiwon asked. "Your new role among the clans," she explained. "For thousands of years we have wandered from world to world, hunting and surviving, but we have always chosen our destinations by instinct and tradition. You could help us choose better." She activated a holographic display showing star charts that stretched across the galaxy. Hundreds of systems glowed with different colors, representing various types of worlds and resources. "Your scientific knowledge could guide us to planets, rich in resources we need. Your understanding of ecosystems could help us avoid worlds with hidden dangers. Your ability to analyze and predict could make our journeys safer and more profitable. But more than that," Nira added, "you could help us understand the universe in ways we never have before. You see patterns we miss. You ask questions we never thought to ask." Jiwon realized what they were really offering him. This wasn't just membership in their society. It was a chance to revolutionize how an entire species explored the galaxy. His scientific knowledge, combined with their hunting expertise and nomadic lifestyle, could unlock secrets that neither humans nor aliens could discover alone. "And my research?" he asked. "My work on planetary ecosystems would continue," Elder Rakhai assured him. "But on a scale no human scientist has ever imagined. Dozens of worlds, hundreds of different life forms, ecosystems that span entire star systems." She paused, watching his face carefully. "You would not just study life among the stars, Pathseeker. You would help us find it, understand it, and protect it." Jiwon looked around the laboratory one more time, then at the faces of the aliens who had become his friends. Nira stood nearby, her golden eyes filled with hope. Elder Rakhai waited patiently for his decision. In the corridor beyond, he could hear the sounds of a vast extended family preparing for their next journey among the stars. He thought about his quiet life on Valdris 7, alone with his plants and soil samples. Then he thought about the infinite cosmos waiting beyond, filled with wonders no human had ever seen. "When do we leave?" he asked. The celebration that followed could probably be heard from orbit. As the Skyborn clans welcomed their first human member, Jiwon realized he had found something he never knew he was looking for: a family among the stars and a purpose that would take him to the very edges of the known universe. The galaxy had just become a much smaller, friendlier place,